This week on Capitol Report, we preview the 2025 legislative session and Governor Lamont's State of the State address.
It's easy to grin when your ship comes in.
And the one word on everyone's mind at the Capitol.
We adhere to the fiscal guardrails. Fiscal guardrails. Guardrails.
Never ceases to amaze me.
Plus, new warnings from Eversource about reducing investments in electrical upgrades.
Yeah, you're gonna make it all 220? Yeah, 220, 221, whatever it takes.
And UConn football hits a home run at Fenway.
Tears of joy, man.
Are you crying? No.
Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dudchick, and we are so glad you're spending part of this first weekend of 2025 alongside the Power Panel, the mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut, Danielle Long. And remind you again, it's election year. Get out there, start knocking on some doors.
Look at the excitement on her face.
Joe Ercem was former Democratic Speaker of the House. Got gavel anxiety right now coming up this week on Wednesday. You'll be up there behind the podium.
I'll be a little jealous watching it.
All right, Liz Crenna was still telling Brack bedtime stories to her kids. And Johnny Mac's back.
I got no stories.
No stories. All right, guys, let's get into it. The tree is down. The ball has dropped, and we're only 5 days into dry January. Don't sweat it, guys. We have opening day of the 2025 General Assembly to look forward to this Wednesday. Right now, Governor Lamont probably sitting behind the desk crossing those T's, dotting those I's on his State of the State address. And there'll be a lot to watch for, and the Nedster also has a budget address on deck for February, so you can expect a big theme for 2025 will be a topic we've discussed ad nauseum on this program. And in case you don't know what I'm referring to, here's a friendly reminder.
We adhere to the fiscal guardrails. Fiscal guardrails.
Stand in the line on the fiscal guardrails.
The obstacles to progress that some politicians call fiscal guardrails.
The fiscal guardrails. You know, are there going to be tweaks to that?
I considered the guardrails one of the platforms for our prosperity.
Yes, guys, guardrails is going to be it, and it's going to be an interesting discussion because we're going to have so many different interest groups on both sides of the issue trying to come kind of consensus on what are we going to do with the guardrails, Joe.
Yeah, and look, the guardrails passed in the 2017 budget. I think it's been incredibly helpful for the state, and I think that's the governor's view. He wants to free up some money by sticking to the guardrails to pay for child care slots, job training, affordable health care. That's his opinion. The legislature now, it's a large body, right? It's 151 in the House. It's 36 in the Senate. John, is that correct? Am I remembering my numbers? I don't go up there much. But they have constituents and constituency groups that really are crying for more funding. It's going to be a very difficult balance, and it will take up almost all the energy of the legislative session.
They did say, guys, my Republican friends, that they just threw a number up for the volatility cap, and that's what it was. And a lot of people are arguing that it was an arbitrary number, and there is room to make cuts.
Well, that's what the critics are saying. That's what the people who want to spend more money are saying. The people like Joe Ercem and Len Fasano and others who spent, and John Fonfara, who spent 9 months working on this, didn't just throw a number against the wall. And quite frankly, whether the number's right or not, it's a complete discredit and disservice to the work, Joe, that you guys did back in then. Look, the fiscal guardrails are working. I served 16 years. Before I was there and since I've left, every year people come up to the Capitol wanting to spend more money on certain programs. There's never enough money to do everything people want to have done, but you have to do the best you can with what you have. That's what makes legislating tough but important.
And Mayor, count the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities and all your friends and mayors across the state as people who do want more money and want the guardrails tweaked.
Absolutely. You know, we have to be intentionally and targeted as we tweak and have those conversations in the upcoming session on the guardrails. Now, my understanding is the House and the Senate, which by the way is a veto-proof majority right now, right? And so what's going to happen is the governor is going to need to do two things. He's going to need to come to the table early to try to build and kind of collaborate on what the budget is going to look like, or his hand is going to be forced at the end of the session because, again, they have the majority to push what they want, and the Democrats have a huge appetite to tweak those guardrails. They need to tweak it, to your point, Joe, with the forefront of focus and discipline and balance, which is going to be pretty difficult. But municipalities, cities, towns are hurting because the lack of social services falls on the backs of the taxpayers locally, such as senior services, Meals on Wheels, these nonprofits that fill this gap with a lot of of services, which I truly believe is a role of the state and federal government, not local government. So we all have to come to the table this session.
Look, the tug of war between the governor and the Democrats in the legislature over the fiscal guardrails has existed the entire time that he has been in office. You know, I will never forget, we were up there and the governor said in his return to office that we were going to today renew for 10 years the fiscal guardrails, and everyone stood up and clapped, and the legislature went in and they gave him 5 years. So I think that what will really impact all of this discussion is the fact that nobody knows whether or not Ned Lamont is going to run again. And I think it would be foolish not to consider that as part of the gamesmanship of what's going to happen in that building on both sides of the aisle, right? You're going to see a lot of Democrats, I think, who are really interested in running for governor, use this as an opportunity to kind of create a name for themselves, and maybe not just people in the building, but those around the building. To your point, Mayor, plenty of constitutional officers, mayors on both sides who are going to be looking to use this legislative session as kind of a battering ram to say to the governor, we're taking over now. We're in charge. And so I think that'll be very telling of how this goes.
All right, to all our friends in the legislature, don't make summer plans, guys. This is no shocker. Utility rates probably going to be a major talking point as well during the upcoming legislative session. If there's something nearly everyone can relate to, it's the common tie of sticker shock when the power bill arrives each month. And the finger pointing continued last week as Eversource announced they need to cut capital spending by nearly $83 million. This year, Eversource says blame PURA, the state's regulatory authority, for its recent rate decisions, which have now led to credit downgrades. The bottom line, less money for an aging power grid and making other infrastructure improvements. Johnny McKinney, they're fixed here. I know you're a PURA apologist here on the panel.
Listen, every time Eversource gets in trouble, they blame PURA. The Consumer Counsel, Claire Coleman, has pointed out Eversource has not gone for a rate adjustment a rate review since 2017. They would rather live with periodic adjustments. People should ask Eversource. They've got great spokespeople. Why haven't you gone for a rate review since 2017? Why? Because it would require them to open up all of their books. So look, we know they have a credit downgrade. That means their cost of borrowing is more. They're investing in Massachusetts because their rate of return in Massachusetts is more predictable and it's higher than Connecticut. They don't want to do it in Connecticut because it's going to affect their bottom line, which affects their stock price. Get off your high horse, Eversource. Sit together, make the investments in the infrastructure in Connecticut that you should be making.
I think they're willing to do it. They're fearful of the tactics and the strategies that are going to be used by PURA. Let's think what PURA is. It's supposed to be an adjudicated body. Now they've been starting to dabble in the policy, and it's very clear they are because you have the chair of the PURA board having conversations with the energy chairs on a regular basis about policy moving forward. That's not what it was designed to be. It's an adjudicated body. They're supposed to present evidence. It's supposed to be fairly decided. When you start mixing in the policy, that's where you're having the issue. So Eversource also has about $2 billion in storm costs that's also stranded that they were told to turn in for, and yet they want to make part of a rate case.
But
so
why haven't they gone for a rate review since 2017?
We don't even know what the rules are. Even the peer review or the periodic review for prudency, it's not clear what those are. It changes every day, and what every business says, whether it's a power industry or not, consistency. What are the rules to which we live under? And right now they can't trust PURA through their docket of coming up with the right scenario.
Look, if you're a consumer in Connecticut, you have to be looking at the fact, and for people who are looking at our environment and conservationists, you're looking at what investments are being made in other states and around the country, and it's not happening in Connecticut. And you have to be looking at them. We've talked about this ad nauseum, almost as much as the guardrails. We don't have a holistic energy policy here in the state of Connecticut, and to your point, there is a logjam between the governor's office and PURA that is being held up by one person. We don't even have a full complement of the PURA commission. And so, if you're a ratepayer, you're looking at these hikes and you're saying, what is going on? And what we learned over the summer is the fact that we've got all these public benefit charges that they're using Eversource as a tax collector.
So to just jump off of you, Liz, it's a mess. The pointing fingers have to stop, because guess who's getting the brunt of everything? The taxpayers, the ratepayers. So this is an opportunity for all of those constitutionals and those gubernatorial candidates that want to come to the table. Leadership needs to come to the table. Everyone needs to sit down. PURA, Eversource, everyone's to blame here. It's not just on the backs of anyone. And they need to deliver for the ratepayers, because we're the ones who are suffering.
Right, guys, former Connecticut Senator Chris Dodd was back in the spotlight to kick off the new year. President Biden awarding the Doddster the Presidential Citizens Medal last Thursday during a White House ceremony. Biden and Dodd are, of course, longtime friends, serving together in the Senate for 28 years. The nation's second highest civilian honor recognized Dodd and 19 others for their commitment to serving others. Watch this.
I think it's pretty damn simple. Our democracy begins and ends the duties of citizenship. That's our work for the ages. That's what all of you, and I mean this, all of you embody.
All right, guys, got good news for Chris, huh?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, all of us know Chris throughout our times in politics, and he really is a genuine, really smart guy. And I think he focused when he went down to D.C., and John, you could talk about it more intimately, the relationships, understanding where people are coming from to understand where he can go with them, striking those bipartisan deals, sometimes stepping out of his comfort zone to increase those relationships. I think that's his long-standing history. And even now, he travels the states, goes to places, he's always there for advice, willing to help people out. It's just who he is.
His political history will certainly be checkered. I think some of the most fun I've had in my political career was working to get him out of office, which we were successful in doing. So I think that there's a long history there on both sides.
Yeah, no doubt that he's had an amazing run, one of the best to come out of Connecticut, for sure.
Yeah, as a young kid, you would listen to Chris Dodd speak, and he was one of the great public speakers and just a great guy. And, you know, I don't agree with Joe Biden a lot, but I agree with him giving an award to Chris Dodd. He deserves it.
I don't know about that beard, Chris. You got to get rid of that. Huh?
Yeah. It's a Dave Letterman thing.
Up next on Cap Report, some other political happenings to keep an eye on in 2025. Newsday's political reporter, our pal Mike Cerulli, gets out his crystal ball when we get back. Do not go away.
Wow, Cerulli's crystal ball.
Well, as anticipation builds for the legislative session, goody gumdrops, it's time to check in with our pal, Newsday's political reporter, the kid, Mike Cerulli. Mike, welcome back to the show. So the conversation about the upcoming session has really been dominated by guardrails debate, Mike. Obviously, a lot of other stuff going to happen in those 6 months. What you keeping an eye on, Mike?
You know, no doubt, you're right. The budget going to be the thing that looms over this session. So is the cost of energy. I heard you discussing that earlier with the panel. But one other issue I want to point your attention to that I'm going to be watching this session is the area of tech regulation. And as far as the legislature is concerned, I think you can kind of break this down into 3 categories: artificial intelligence, social media, and the issue of phones in classrooms. Now, of course, there's a lot of areas where those issues overlap, and there are a lot of areas where they do not overlap. So I don't want to paint with a broad brush here. But as far as that common theme of curbing the harmful effects of technology, particularly as it relates to children, those are going to be issues to watch this session.
Mike, the governor said no last session to a big AI bill, right?
Yes, he did. It would have been first in the nation, big AI bill sweeping regulations championed by State Senator James Maroney from Milford. In his sort of Lamontian fashion, the governor expressed concerns about the impact that bill would have had on the rapidly growing AI industry. Then he threatened an outright veto. So that killed the bill. But Maroney, still a national leader on this issue, and he is strongly positioned to try again this year on that AI bill.
It's really claiming the Lamontian. But, you know, Mike, Maroney's also been big on the issue of social media regulations, correct?
Yeah, data privacy and regulation of some of the features of social media platforms, infinite scrolling, messaging children. These are things that the state has already cracked down on. But the absence of broader federal action, like the Kids Online Safety Act, a lot of parents might look at that and say, hang on, state lawmakers need to do more. Perhaps more enforceable age limits on those platforms, perhaps parental controls, perhaps action to crack down on illegal activities like drug dealing that have been documented to take place specifically on platforms like Snapchat. These are areas that usually see bipartisan cooperation. Could see more action this year.
Mike, in phones in school, you were just in grade school a few years ago. How's that panning out?
Yeah, a few years, yeah. This is actually a policy the governor went out of his way to highlight in last year's State of the State address. And the approach is basically this. Look, there are a lot of impediments to regulating social media. You've got federal law that provides pretty broad immunity to these platforms. You've got a legion of tech lobbyists who will descend on any legislation that tries to touch this stuff. And you've got the Constitution, which prevents some of those more aggressive proposals. So the governor has suggested maybe you just lock up the phones for the 8 hours a day that the kids are in school. There are specially built pouches that do this effectively. It's certainly a blunter instrument than those targeted regulations, but some school districts have found it to be successful, and it's an idea that state leaders might be looking to promote and incentivize this session.
Mike Cerulli, I suspect the business community will also chime in on AI as the state tries to grow their AI businesses. So stuff you'll be keeping an eye on. Mike, thanks for being here. See you Wednesday.
Tom. Great to be here.
Up next on Cap Report, New Year's resolutions. Connecticut Democratic Party is making a few, and they don't involve weight loss or eating more leafy green vegetables. Look into the agenda. When we get back, don't go away. Connecticut Democrats wasted no time getting their fundraising underway for the 2025. The party sending out a New Year's resolution email in an effort to collect a fresh infusion of cash. Democrats say they're ready to turn the page on 2024, and they resolve in the new year to, quote, fight against extremism, protect our rights, and create lasting progress for Connecticut. Adding, our leaders are stepping up to the challenge, strengthening legal protections, locally securing access to essential medications like milpristone, and standing up for every resident, regardless of immigration status. I'll start with my Democratic friends, guys. Does this make you want to chip in and get the checkbook out, Danielle? What do you think? I think I pronounced that right. The panel's all betting against me on that one.
You got it good job, Tom.
I think it was better this time than the first time.
Well, thanks a lot.
But look, the fact of the matter is we are on the right track. This is standard operating procedure to have those donor appeals top of the year. We've done a great job, and we're going to continue to do that. You know, supermajority in the House, check. Supermajority in the Senate, check. Connecticut's federal delegation, all Democratic, check. Top of the ticket gubernatorial candidates blowing out the Republicans, check, right? So now it's time to look inward locally and build that bench, continue to hand off some of those roles to the younger generation. I'm excited to see the Democratic Party really embrace that. Let's see if that happens, and keep it moving. We're doing a great job.
That's strong, Liz.
You know,
You're strong
I was
there.
delighted to see that the Democrats wanted to fight against extremism, and my hope is that they start within their own party, right? I mean, we have seen some egregious acts on behalf of Democrats, and we've seen Democrats, particularly in the state of Connecticut, remain silent on extremism, particularly anti-Semitic extremism that we've seen run rampant through this country since October of last year. And so if we're really taking that call to action seriously, I hope that that is something that they resolve to do, and that they do call it out, even and especially when it's from within their own party, because we haven't seen that yet.
See, I'd like to do more looking forward than looking back. I think the word fight is overused right now. Like, we don't always have to fight. Sometimes it's okay to talk. Yes, we have differences. We have policy differences. We have fiscal issues, whether it's the guardrails or not. We have to sit and have the conversations. I'm hoping the Democrats, and I do think we've checked a lot of boxes, but now we got to go back and look at this last election, have some serious conversations with the voters, because while we're doing well here in Connecticut, you did see an erosion. You saw points getting tighter in various communities around the state. So our message isn't getting out there entirely. I think we're doing the right things, but let's drop this fighting and start talking about having conversations, and protecting people is the right conversation to have, but how you do it is important.
Well, respectfully, outside of Connecticut, it wasn't that your message wasn't getting out there. It's the fact that your message was terrible.
Terrible.
You lied to the American people about Joe Biden's status and a whole host of other issues which we don't need to relitigate. But this is about fundraising, and this is what's so problematic. You can't raise money as a Republican or a Democrat if you send out a plea saying, I've just sat down with a colleague from the other side of the aisle and we've reached a bipartisan compromise. I didn't get everything I wanted, but this is the right way forward for our state or our country. Boo. No one's going to give you a dollar. So if you're a Democrat now, you have to go out and say, democracy's about to end because of the evil of Donald Trump, and you'll raise money. That's not good for our country. Both parties do it. I'm not putting blame on one party, but we need to figure out a better way.
100%. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Campaign finance
All right, guys.
killed democracy.
Up next on Cap Report, the triumphant return of the football glory to the UConn campus. The details when we get back. Do not go away.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Panel's fired up.
Wow. Tell me.
Well, a rare time for us to eat some crow here on Cal Report. You may recall at the start of the college football season, there were some rumblings about UConn possibly moving to the Big 12 Conference. And of course, we laughed about that idea following a 50-7 opening season beatdown against Maryland. Well, folks, it's UConn who's having the last laugh on us. The Huskies rolled their way to a bowl game, winning convincingly against University of North Carolina, the future coaching home of Liz's pal Bill Belichick. Coach Jim Mora getting a contract extension to the tune of $10 million, and Mora and his players, he has them believing in the future of those Huskies. Watch this.
I'm trying to hold back the team. I'm trying to be as strong as I can, but it's just a testament to all the hard work and believing in the process, man. And Coach Moore, man, this is a great place, a great decision I made, and I'm just thankful.
What are those tears of?
Tears of joy, man.
UConn finishes the season 9-4, better than Arizona, the basketball capital of the world, making some room for football. John McKinney, huh?
Oh, no one is safe today.
First of all, you have to give all the credit in the world to Dave Benedict and Jim Mora. Jim Mora is a fantastic coach for these young men. You watch, he's got a program where people can come in, he gets them better, and now they can leap to even bigger programs. Hopefully, they'll get good enough to stay. They need to be in a conference. But for UConn football to finally succeed, people need to fill the rent.
Yep.
They need to sell out their home games.
Yeah, Ward Manuel down there in Michigan, go blue. How'd he do? Not that well.
And congrats to our friend John Shaban's son, who's on the team.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think my comment was it's about the Jackson Joes as opposed to the X's and O's. It seems like Coach Moore got it exactly right. He knew who he was bringing in through the portal. He put the right game plan out there. Had a great season. Congratulations.
All right, guys, that'll do it for this week. For the mayor and the coach, Lizzie, Johnny Mack, I'm Tom Dudchick. See you next week. Come on,
No
Johnny.
more
Start off the new year.
No more
Come
tampering,
on.
John.
Oh, there's two pieces of paper there. It was